Right, thank you, Julian. Good morning, every one of you. So we've got a heading of entry to stud employment and a new approach. And a key point there is those few words, a new approach. But just before I launch into that particular initiative, some background, which I think will help. We are today talking to you with our partners in education and training, the National Stud, hence Tabbi is here. We work very closely with them. They deliver a great deal of what the Thoroughbred Breeders Board decides should be a program to help breeders and help people employed in the industry. So, the Education and Employment Committee, which at the moment comprises, and I think it's worth just mentioning these names, myself, Richard Lancaster, of course a past chairman, Claire Cooper from Shadwell, Julian Wilson, who's here with us, Anthea Gibson Fleming, who's a board member, Joseph D'Souza, a new name perhaps to you, just joined us recently and is looking after the TTC committee, the Thoroughbred Club, which is linked into the Education and Employment Committee and is part of our recruitment drive pointing at young people. Caroline Turnbull from the executive, and Claire Shepherd, obviously our new chief executive. Just a quick word about Caroline, because she's been a stalwart in this area for even longer than I have, and I just want to make a point of thanking her for all the work that she's doing in this area. Without her, we'd be sunk. So, Caroline, thank you. So, the Education and Employment Committee aims to promote and facilitate the recruitment, education, employment and retention of new and existing staff at all levels and the continuing professional development of employers and breeders. That's our objective, but just at the moment, and I put under that, the greatest challenge for us as the committee concerns supporting employers, studs, in securing and training new staff. Again, just before I go on to that, to explain the work of the committee and its breadth is a good thing, I think. So we are, on behalf of the TBA, looking at this as a broad cloth, and here are some of the things we're doing at the moment. We've got the broodmare ownership course. We've just delivered a course on mental health first aid, topical subject. We attempt to deliver training regionally and have been in Yorkshire and Hampshire this year. We've got courses on supervisory skills. We organise the annual seminar, which of course we're here today. There's a stud farming course, guidance for mare owners workshops. We run a particularly important service for breeders and our members on legal advice, and we just renewed the contract on that. We extend into health and safety guidance, pension guidance, employment documentation. Julian mentioned at the beginning of the day, we go out to colleges to spread the word about working in the thoroughbred breeding industry, similarly attending career fairs, developing material to promote careers on the website, etc. Skills passports, just at the end there. That's a new initiative. It links in to what I'm going to say shortly. But what we're attempting to do as an objective there is provide people coming into employment in the industry with a passport, a document in which their attainments can be recorded so they become transferable in terms of showing them to future employers as they move forward. And that will include not just formal training, but even down to attendance at days like this can be entered in a skills passport, so you build that record. We're working with the BHA on that at the moment. I also have to mention our funding partners in this area, because without the money we can't do it. And the money in Quantum is about £300,000 a year of the TBA revenue being directed to this area, education and employment, and all the activities I've been talking about. And our funding partners include the Levy Board, who've been stalwarts throughout time, providing annual funding support, BHA, who are now the pivotal point for funding. They receive it and distribute it and have got funds of their own, and the Racing Foundation, which has become an important new partner for us and an enthusiastic new partner. But the Thoroughbred Breeders Association itself is putting significant funds in this direction. Where does it come from? Members' fees, and particularly and importantly from the sales levy. Just as background then, what industry are we serving? What are we trying to do in coming up with this new initiative? Well, our surveys have shown us that the breeding industry in this country, in approximate terms, because we don't register breeders, involves 350 employers on studs and farms, and some smaller breeders, obviously, and around about 3,750 employees. So back to where I started, the greatest challenge of the moment, and it is about getting people into employment in this industry. Why is it that I'm saying that? How is it that we know that? And the answer to that is that we've carried out 2 workforce analyses in recent years, 2 surveys, and I can remember sitting down originally with Caroline planning the first one in 2014, and then sitting down again in 2016 when, in fact, in talks with the Racing Foundation, they were keen to fund another one, and worrying that we were coming to breeders again, coming to people in the industry again, asking them similar questions, asking them to help us again. But I needn't actually have worried, because we got, and I'll run through these key results, on the second survey, we got a response of 49% from all the surveys that we sent out. Now, statistically, to be valid, you need around 15%, I'm told, but we had 49% response, which I think demonstrated that there was a message for us to take in this. So the figures are interesting, I think. So back in 2014, we were being told there was an annual vacancy rate in the breeding industry for new staff of around 9%. But when we looked at the later survey, it had increased to 15%, which is statistically a 67% increase. Just to show you by comparison, in racing, and they've done the same surveys, they have a vacancy rate of 24%, which is considerably more, and I've been at their roadshows recently where they are focusing very much on the people need as well as the horse need now. So breeding isn't as challenged as yet, but it's seen a significant increase. But when you look at these second figures, the hard-to-fill vacancies. In 2014, 40% of those vacancies were tough to fill. More latterly, that's gone up to 55%. Not entirely surprising in a full employment environment, but that was telling us something, that the skills, we concluded, the skills that employers were looking for were hard to find. You can see the comparative figure for racing, which, unlike the first figure, where they were comfortably ahead in vacancies, in fact, their hard-to-fill rate was a little bit below that in breeding. So why are we doing what we're doing, therefore? What are the background things that are causing a potential issue? So at the moment, provision of entry-level training, which is the only formal system for coming into the industry, has been narrow, focusing on 16 to 18-year-olds. Why? Because for those youngsters, you get government funding, significant government funding to help you with training. That's important to the National Stud as the training provider. But it does come with requirements that restrict what you can do. You have to pick up on the national curriculum and do key skills, maths, English, computer issues. You've got to teach your youngsters what they learnt at school again, as well as do what you want, so you're restricted in terms of what you can do and the amount of time you've got available. Another factor, of course, is the change in the school leaving age, referred to as ROPA. So these youngsters are staying at school, which they must do, or come into formal education. So the supply chain's less. But interestingly, and it came from the survey, there's no clear and effective entry route for others, including mature individuals and those already in employment. So we've got a scheme that will deal with 16 to 18-year-old school leavers, youngsters. But how do others come into the industry? Well, that's through you as employers, advertising, obviously, but it's not centrally coordinated or controlled. And Tabbi said something to me a few weeks ago in terms of someone who'd been applying for the new course. They said, I've always wanted to get a job in thoroughbred breeding, always wanted to, but I simply couldn't find the way in. I did not know how I could gain entry. And if you think about it, and this was a mature individual, the only thing we're doing formally is for 16 to 18-year-olds. So they have to rely on local advertisement, seeing that. So that was something that resonated particularly with us. So our challenge was to provide training, we thought, for more mature entrants to the industry, but without the benefit of government funding, because government funding largely is not available for the more mature individuals. Some of them can benefit from a little bit of funding. Tabbi is the expert on that, but essentially that subvention that we've had for the 16 to 18-year-olds won't be available. So if we want to do something different for more mature people, then we had to recognize the challenge that if we're going to do that, take that important decision, funding has to be directed from central sources to give us our new initiative. So what did we do? Work commenced in December 2016 when we, the TBA, funded, working with the National Stud, we funded work into what it is we want to do, what our objectives are going to do. And that was, as our first step, a scoping exercise, curriculum development, identified our costs, employer consultation. So the first thing we did was say, and we committed 15,000 to it, let's try and work up a new course. We then went to our respective boards, National Stud Board and the TBA, and said that we know there's a problem, the survey says there's a problem, we know how we've done this in the past, but it's not working. There's substantial demand from employers for staff they can't find, and they can't get the skills. Now, we knew, come back to what I said about the fact that if you're taking government funding, a lot of your time on training has to be to the things they want you to do, core educational skills. If we're not having to do that, we have an opportunity with a new course to do other things, to do things that employers want, to try and give the new trainees the missing skills that employers aren't finding at the moment. So that was an important objective. So we went to our boards, and then there's the gulp. It's got to be funded. Now, we asked the TBA board to actually fund something in the order of £300,000 over the next 2 years to pilot the new course. It's a further allocation for the TBA of £215,000 because we're already helping and supporting the National Stud with the 16 to 18-year-old course. And Tabbi will explain they're going to continue that at a lower level for the moment, but it's additional funding of 215, but in total 300. So that's the gestation, that's how it came about, and you'll keep seeing E2SE there. So this is our little shortening of entry to stud employment. So the course is E2SE, ETSE. It's a key initiative to the future, for the future. It's a very important initiative for the TBA. It's using the funds, allocating those funds that we're fortunate enough to receive, some from our funding partners, but in the main through our income from members' subscriptions and the all-important sales levy. So today we're launching, formally launching, the E2SE course. It'll be a 2-year pilot. We hope it will be incredibly successful. We hope it will become the norm. It will take over as the entry training course. It will have to be funded more by us, by the industry. But if it's as successful as we hope, and we've got more mature individuals coming in, older people coming in, they're more likely to be able to pay. At the moment, the youngsters can't pay anything. People coming out of the armed forces, for instance, have got funds that are given to them to help them find new employment, and people changing careers who've already been in employment will have more funds. So we're hoping it'll become sustainable longer term, not just through central funding coming from our resources, but from self-supporting funding from people on the course. Just to show you we've gone a long way already, that's some of the literature that's already been developed. It includes the course curriculum, its handouts to promote E2SE, and they're ready to go. A little bit of work's been done already. But I'm now going to hand over to Tabbi, who will give you a bit more detail on exactly what's happening in promoting the course. Really, how are you getting on, Tabbi, so far?
Thank you very much, Paul, for that. I think that first title really says it all. It's innovative and it's responsive recruitment partnership. We all know that recruiting good staff is the most important thing that we need to start with. They are the people that are looking after the horses, and we are trying to get, obviously, these younger people into the industry. The entry-level employment training has been around for a long time. I think the last time I looked back at the records, we've got about 26 years worth of records at the National Stud of people who've been through various names of different things, YTS, modern apprenticeships, but that's the same thing. Now we have been doing that, as I say, for a long time. It's all at level 2, and its current incarnation is the intermediate apprenticeship in stud work. It is due to change again, but that's all going on at the moment. It has been slightly put on hold whilst it's being approved and things, and obviously the election came in and slightly messed that up. How does it work? Well, we run exactly the same as the British Racing School does. 9 weeks residential training, and then 12-month apprenticeship out into obviously employment. Now, that 12-month apprenticeship is set by the regulations of the government. We can't do it in any shorter time. It has to be 12 months. The 9 weeks, we are very lucky. We are able to get funding for the same. And thank goodness we don't have to try and teach them to ride. But we are taking people who've never touched horses before. And I have to be honest, it's successful. In a lot of cases, we are very proud of the people we get into the industry, and we're very keen on them. There's lots of positives about the system and lots of positives about the training. Paul's mentioned the funding is primarily there for 16 to 18-year-olds. In light of everything else that we've gone through, all of the surveys, all of the information, the experience that we've had with them, we have decided not to take that younger age group anymore going forward. So on the apprenticeships, which will be running alongside with the new E2SE course, again, there will only be 18-year-olds. So we are pleased with what that does, but to be honest, it's so restrictive. It's restrictive by funding methodologies, it's restricted by age range, it's restricted by GCSE results, it's restricted by prior qualifications. We cannot take who we want to take, and we can't take who's best for the industry. So that's where the E2SE comes in, because those rules have meant that keen, enthusiastic people with plenty of aptitude and a real passion and drive to get into this industry, we've never been able to offer them a route. So we've never been able to offer them that chance to learn those things, to get into the industry as a beginner. So that's where this course responds to that gap. And it is really, honestly, a missed opportunity. There are so many people out there who have, exactly as Paul mentioned, said to me, this is the only way I have ever found of being able to get into this industry, and I've wanted to do this for years. So this is the sort of thing that is really, really positive, the feedback. So the partnership that we're running is looking to provide suitable candidates to come in then with some introductory training. They will be green. They are not going to be fully formed, but they will have had at least some chance to have learned some basic skills. And then we will put them into placement with receptive studs who want to take on and take these young trainees. So, 9-week residential. It's going to run exactly the same sort of formula, tried and tested formula as we've used with the apprenticeship. But instead of a 12-month minimum, it's 6 to 9 months. And that will allow them to get a level 2 qualification and also do lots of other things, because they're going to be more mature, they're going to be more receptive, they are also going to be very, very aware of the opportunity they've been given. So they're going to want to lap up this knowledge as they're going through their job. The residential course at the National Stud, it's 9 weeks of absolutely full-on stuff. We try to pack it full as much as we can, but it is only 9 weeks. As I said, we can't turn out people completely fully formed, but we can give them a very good introduction. And we are concentrating on 3 main elements on that course. And those are the elements that people have identified not only to us from the employer's consultation survey, but also things that we've identified over the last goodness knows how many years that are really important for these people to get the handle on before they go out into placement. The most obvious one being is horse handling skills. If you're taking people who have never touched a horse in their life, and we get them to the point where they can come and work at the December sales in 8 weeks, because we don't even manage to do that, we have 9 weeks to do it, we're doing a pretty good job. But they are learning that as they go along. We throw them in, starting off with nice simple horses, moving on up through the levels of many different types of horses, moving on to perhaps doing some foal prep. So we're trying to get them as many different horse handling experiences as we can. Yard work skills. They've got to be able to work at industry speed. Okay? We all take mucking out, bedding down, doing all those things. We take it for granted. We've all been doing it for years and years. If you've not ever done it before and you're faced with a stable And you think, well, actually, how do I do it? And we've seen some very interesting ways of learning how to muck out. But anyway, what we aim to do is to teach them the basic, simple way of getting the job done at the industry speed that an employer is going to be happy with. And accept that, yes, they might be a little bit slower than your established stud hands, but at least they're trying and they're willing and keen. And then the final thing, which, let's face it, we all know is probably the most important, you can put up with an awful lot of somebody being green if they're keen and they're willing. If they're willing to work in a team and take advantage of the opportunities, there are lots of things you can do with those kinds of people. So we tend to talk about the National Stud, the 9-week residential course is a 9-week interview. Because if they can get through 9 weeks working with colleagues, cohorts, younger people, older people, with our staff, and still remain jolly and keen, then they're probably the right sort of people we want to put into the industry. Now, along the line, these are the sorts of things that we're tending to try and do with them. Vet work and stud industry, give them a brief overview of what goes on in the industry, make sure they know what's going on. We're very lucky that we have some Southern Hemisphere mares, so at the time the students are in with us in October through to mid-December, they do actually get to see some vet work, which is invaluable for them going into the season. We obviously do grooming, handling, tack, bandages, feedstuffs, blowers and strimmers. Again, just getting them to learn how to start one of them. You know, it's really important, simple stuff. If they've never done it before, it's really good for them. We want to do a lot of additional qualifications with them, and at the moment what we're trying to do is give them a suite of qualifications, a package that when they come out to employers, they have got all the stuff that they really need to do to start and not have to worry about doing too much more induction stuff with them. So first aid, health and safety, manual handling, transporting horses, the important award that they would need to be able to accompany horses legally. Tractor driving. I am not assuming to teach them to drive. If they don't come with a driving licence, we're not going to do the tractor driving. But if we can give them a basic qualification that gives the confidence that you know they've been trained and they can drive a tractor, then that's great. We also need to keep on top of what's going on, this guidance with them. They're going to be weekly guided whilst they're with us on residential course. Whilst they're going out into placement, again, they're exactly the same model as we've always followed. We know it works. Is going out and seeing them on a regular basis and assessing them, but also going out and getting employer feedback, getting the feedback from employers and saying, is it what you want? How did the course work? Are they the right people? What can we do to help? So it will carry on, hopefully being a partnership between ourselves and employers as well. So where are we at the moment with E2SE? Well, it's been a little bit tricky not being able to announce it to the world and being very enthusiastic about it until we've launched it properly today. However, having said that, we've had over 30 expressions of interest. We've received 9 applications. We've interviewed 3 people, and 2 of those we've taken straight in. So there is already a process moving forward. We are going to continue to recruit for our start in mid-October, and we are very confident that not only are we going to reach those 12 places, but we're going to reach 12 places with the sort of quality of people that the industry have expressed an interest in, and we think are going to be the right people to support the TBA in this wonderful programme and also get them into this employment. Thank you very much.